The morning sun climbed over the coastal town of, painting the fishing boats in shades of orange and gold, laughed as she chased her older brother around their grandparents' small garden. The girl's black hair bounced with each step, her 7-year-old legs pumping hard to catch up. "Too slow," called over his shoulder, grinning. At 9 years old he was faster, but he always let his sister almost catch him. That was what big brothers did. Inside the house, hummed while preparing lunch. The smell of grilled fish and rice filled the kitchen. She was 62 years old, with silver streaks in her dark hair and gentle eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Her hands moved with practiced ease, the way they had for 15 years since she and her husband had taken in there. Sat on the porch, mending fishing nets. His weathered face showed every one of his 65 years, carved by sun and sea salt. His hands were strong despite his age, fingers working the tangled ropes with patient skill. He watched the children play and allowed himself a small smile. This was peace, this was home. The sky changed first. Looked up, his smile fading. Something felt wrong. The air pressure shifted, making his ears pop. Birds scattered from the trees, flying inland in a panic. The old man stood slowly, his body tensing in a way it had not done for many years. He called softly. She appeared in the doorway immediately, reading something in his tone that others would have missed. Her gentle expression hardened just slightly. "What is it?" "Get the children inside." Before she could move, the ships appeared. They materialized out of nothing, 3 massive vessels that hung in the air like metal clouds. They were dark gray, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. A sound filled the air, a deep humming that made teeth ache and bones vibrate. Stopped running, she stared up at the sky, her mouth open. "Grandpa, what are those?" "Inside, now." His voice was sharp, commanding. Both children froze at the tone. They had never heard their grandfather sound like that. Grabbed hand and pulled her toward the house. Followed, his mind racing through possibilities, through old training he had tried to forget. But they were too slow. The light came next, brilliant and blue. It swept across the town like a wave, touching everything in its path. When it touched, his body locked up. He tried to move, tried to fight, but his muscles would not obey. He fell forward, crashing onto the porch, completely paralyzed. Through his frozen eyes, he could see on the ground near the doorway. He could see and collapsed on the grass, their small bodies motionless. He could hear his own heart pounding in his ears, but he could not even blink. The alien ships descended lower. Hatches opened in their bellies and smaller craft emerged. They looked like silver insects, buzzing through the air on blue flames. They landed throughout the town, and figures emerged. The aliens were tall and thin, with too many joints in their arms and legs. Their skin was pale purple, smooth like plastic. They had large black eyes that did not blink and small mouths that barely moved when they made sounds. They wore suits of dark armor that seemed to shift colors. One alien walked up to where lay frozen. It tilted its head, studying her the way a human might study an interesting stone. It reached down with long fingers and touched her hair. "Category 7 genetic stock," it said in a voice like wind through metal. "Acceptable for processing." Another alien approached. It scanned him with a small device that glowed green. "This one is older, better cognitive development, higher value." They spoke in their own language, but somehow could understand it. Perhaps the paralysis beam did something to the brain, he thought distantly. Or perhaps these creatures had translation technology. Not that it mattered. He could only watch as they picked up his. Throughout the town, the same scene repeated. The aliens moved from house to house, from street to street. They took only children, 23 children total, ranging from age 5 to 12. They carried them like cargo, loading them into the silver craft with no care for the silent screaming happening in every frozen parent's mind. One alien spoke into a device on its wrist. "Harvest complete. No resistance. Primitive population posed no threat. Acknowledged, came a reply. Return to the processing ship. The silver craft lifted off, carrying the children away. They rose into the air and vanished into the larger ships. The huge vessels hung there for a moment longer, dark and terrible against the blue sky. Then they simply disappeared, as suddenly as they had arrived. The paralysis lasted another 2 hours. Felt it fade slowly like ice melting. First his fingers twitched, then his arm moved. Finally his whole body obeyed him again. He gasped and pushed himself up, his old joints protesting. She was already moving, crawling toward where the children had been. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. They took them. They took them. Other townspeople were stirring now, crying out, searching for their children. The realization spread like fire. 23 families, all discovering the same horror. Government vehicles arrived within the hour. Officials in suits examined the area, took statements, made recordings. They spoke in calm, professional voices, but their eyes showed they had no answers. "We will do everything we can," one official told, but you must understand this is beyond our current capabilities. We do not have the technology to pursue them into space. After the officials left, after the other families had scattered to grieve and sat alone in their house, the silence was heavy. Stood first. She walked to the kitchen and moved the old refrigerator aside. Behind it was a panel in the wall. She pressed 4 specific spots and the panel slid open. Behind it was a steel door with a keypad. "Watch from the doorway, are you sure?" "They took our bobbies." His voice was cold, so cold that it would have frightened anyone who thought they knew the gentle grandmother. "We stopped being who we were for them. Now we become who we were to get them back." She punched in the code. The steel door opened with a hiss, revealing stairs leading down into darkness. The basement they had sealed 15 years ago. The basement that held everything from their old life. Stood and walked to his wife's side. His weathered face was hard now, showing traces of the man he had once been. The man who had earned the name Stone in places that did not appear on any map. "I will make the calls," said. "We will need Wu and the others if they are still alive." "And if they are not?" Looked at him. In her eyes he saw the woman called Whisper, the woman who had made generals cry and tyrants confess. "Then we go alone." They descended the stairs together, 2 old people heading into the dark. But they would not be old people for much longer. They would be something much more dangerous. The basement smelled of oil and dust. Flipped the light switch, and fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, revealing a room that did not match the simple house above. Metal shelves lined the walls, holding equipment wrapped in protective plastic. A workbench sat in the corner, tools arranged with military precision. And in the center of the room stood a gun safe, 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Moved to the safe and placed his hand on the scanner. It beeped once, then the heavy door swung open. Inside were weapons, not hunting rifles or sport pistols, but military hardware that should not exist in a civilian home. Assault rifles, guns, handguns of various makes, boxes of ammunition, knives with black blades, explosives deactivated but ready to arm, body armor, communications equipment. The tools of killers. "Has it really been 15 years?" asked quietly, running his hand over a rifle he had carried through 3 wars. 15 years, 2 months, and 6 days, replied. She was already pulling plastic off a laptop, powering it on. "Since we walked away." Picked up a photograph from the shelf. It showed a younger version of himself in military uniform, standing with 5 other people. All of them had the same hard eyes, the same dangerous stillness. "I was Stone," he said softly. "Do you remember? They called me that because nothing could break me. 40 years I did things for our country, things that needed to be done in the dark." Looked at the photograph over his shoulder. "And I was Whisper. Because I could make anyone tell me anything. I spent 35 years in rooms that officially did not exist, talking to people who officially were not there. She pointed to the others in the photo. Wu, he was our tech specialist. If it had circuits, he could control it. Last I heard, he was working for the Space Defense Program. Her finger moved to a woman with sharp features. Explosives expert. She could blow a door or collapse a building, whatever we needed. Sung said, pointing to a broad-shouldered man. Heavy weapons. If we needed to level something, we called him. Jin, a thin man with glasses. Field medic and poison specialist. He kept us alive and made our enemies dead. And a young-looking man with a scar across his cheek. Close combat specialist. He was the best knife fighter I ever saw. Close the laptop. That was 30 years ago. We made enemies, powerful enemies. That is why we retired. That is why we disappeared. I know. If we do this, if we become who we were again, those enemies will know we are alive. There will be consequences. Set down the photograph and picked up his rifle. He checked it with practiced ease, his old muscles remembering every motion. They took and there are no consequences worse than that. Nodded slowly. Then we start. I will contact Wu first. We need to know what the government really knows about these aliens. She opened an encrypted communication program and typed in a code she had not used in 15 years. Then she waited. 3 minutes later, a message appeared on the screen. Whisper, is that really you? Typed, I need information. Alien ships took my 6 hours ago. What does the government know? The response came quickly. More than they told you. We have been tracking alien activity for 8 years. There is a facility on the moon. I am there now. What do you need? Everything you have on the ships that hit today, and I need transport to you. A pause, then, you are coming back after all these years. My were taken. I am going to get them back. Another pause, longer this time. Finally, I will send coordinates. There is a military base 3 hours north of you. I can get you on the next supply run to the moon, but whisper. What you are planning is impossible. His fingers moved across the keyboard. Impossible is what we always did. Get me the information. I will handle the rest. She closed the laptop and looked at. Wu is in. We leave in 4 hours. And the others? Pulled out an old phone, the kind that could not be traced. She dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before someone answered. This is a disconnected line, a woman's voice said. Broken glass still cuts, replied. It was an old code phrase. The voice changed immediately. Whisper, no, you are dead. I got better. Are you still in the game? I have not been in the game for 12 years. I run a bar in now. I am respectable. I need you. What you need is to stay dead. We earned our retirement. They took my aliens. I am going after them. Silence on the line. Then, aliens, you have lost your mind. I have the coordinates for a moon base. We leave in 4 hours. Are you in or out? More silence. Could hear voices in the background, the clink of glasses, normal life sounds, the life they had all wanted. My bar does not open until evening anyway, finally said. Send me the location. Made 4 more calls. Each conversation was similar. Initial disbelief, resistance. Then the question that mattered, are you in or out? Sung was running a construction company in Seoul. He arrived first, 3 hours later, driving a truck that rattled with hidden cargo. He was 68 now, gray-haired and thick around the middle, but his arms were still massive. I told my wife I had a job, he said, unloading weapons from the truck bed. Not entirely a lie. Jin arrived next, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes. He had been teaching chemistry at a university. I kept my skills sharp, he said quietly, just in case. I never thought the case would be aliens. Was the last to arrive, pulling up on a motorcycle. He was 55 but moved like he was 30. I have been working as a bodyguard for a politician, he said. Boring work. This sounds more interesting. Came with them, her hair shorter than in the old photograph, but her eyes just as sharp. Someone had to make sure these idiots did not get lost, she said. They gathered in the small house, 6 old soldiers sitting around a table where children usually had breakfast. They looked like someone's grandparents, someone's respectable neighbors. But the weapons on the table told a different story. Wu sent another message with detailed information. The government had been monitoring alien activity. Multiple species were visiting Earth, most just observing, but one species, had been abducting people, usually adults who disappeared without families noticing. This was the first time they had taken children. They made a mistake, said, reading the message. Taking adults, no one looks too hard, but children, they have no idea what they just started. What is our play? Sung asked. We cannot exactly call them and ask for the kids back. Pulled up images on her laptop. Wu says there is an experimental ship at the moon base, stealth technology. It can track the aliens through something called quantum signatures. You want to steal a spaceship, Jin said. I want to borrow a spaceship, corrected, and use it to follow the aliens, find where they took our children, and take them back. Laughed, but it was not a happy sound. We are old, we are out of practice, and you want us to fight aliens in space. Yes. Finally, said, smiling, something challenging. They loaded the truck in silence, each person falling back into old patterns. They had worked together for so many years that words were not necessary. Each person knew their job. As the sun set, they drove north, 6 retired operatives heading back to war. One last time. For the children. The military base was hidden inside a mountain. Wu met them at the entrance, looking older than his 60 years but still sharp. His hair was completely white now, and he wore thick glasses, but his eyes lit up when he saw his old team. I never thought I would see you all again, he said. We never thought we would need to come back, replied, but here we are. Wu led them deep into the mountain, through corridors that did not appear on any map. They passed security checkpoints where guards looked away, pretending not to see. Wu had clearly called in favors. The moon base is real, Wu explained as they walked. We have been building it for 6 years. Officially, it is for research. Unofficially, it is because we know we are not alone in the universe. We needed to be ready. But not ready enough, said. No, not for this. They reached an elevator that went up instead of down. It climbed for what felt like miles, finally opening onto a launch platform. A shuttle sat waiting, sleek and white. This will take you to the moon, Wu said. I already logged you as a maintenance crew. No one will ask questions. What about the stealth ship? Sung asked. It is there. I have access codes, but I need to be clear about something. Wu looked at each of them. This ship is experimental. We have only tested it 3 times. It might work perfectly. It might fall apart the moment you enter deep space. We will risk it, said. The shuttle ride took 6 hours. None of them spoke much. They were each thinking about the children, about what the aliens might be doing to them, about whether they would be fast enough. The moon base was larger than they expected. Built into craters and underground tunnels, it sprawled across miles of lunar surface. Hundreds of people worked there, scientists and soldiers and engineers. Wu led them to a hangar at the edge of the facility. Inside sat the stealth ship. It was beautiful in a deadly way. Black as night, shaped like a blade, 50 meters long, covered in panels that seemed to absorb light. The hull was smooth, with no visible weapons, but something about it screamed danger. She is called the Silent Wind, Wu said. Powered by experimental fusion cores, equipped with quantum tracking sensors, and completely invisible to most scanning technology. Can she fight? Asked. She has pulse cannons and missile bays, but her real strength is not being seen until it is too late. They loaded their equipment aboard. Weapons, armor, supplies for a long journey. Wu had also prepared something special, detailed information on physiology. I hacked into some classified databases, Wu said, not sounding sorry about it. They are physically weaker than humans. Their bones are lighter, their muscles less dense. They rely on technology for everything. So if we get close, we can take them, Sung said. If you can get close. They have energy shields, advanced weapons, and numerical superiority. You will be 6 people against an entire empire. We have been worse odds, said. Wu activated the tracking system. A holographic display appeared, showing trails through space. The ship that took the children left a quantum signature. I can follow it. According to the trail, they are heading toward space. That is 3 weeks away at maximum speed. Then we leave now, said. They launched an hour later, the silent wind lifting off the lunar surface without a sound. Earth hung in the blue and beautiful and fragile. We will be back, said quietly, with the children. The journey through space was strange. Moving faster than light felt like being nowhere and everywhere at once. The ship hummed with power, carrying them away from everything they knew. They used the time to train. Their bodies were old, but muscle memory ran deep. Sung practiced with heavy weapons in the cargo bay, moved through knife forms with deadly grace. Jin mixed compounds in a small lab, creating things that could kill in creative ways. Assembled explosives, her hands steady despite her age. And studied the data. They learned how the aliens thought, how they organized their society, how they viewed other species. They categorize everyone, said, reading from a file. Category 1 is species they consider dangerous. Category 7 is primitives, harmless. They put us at Category 7, said. They made a mistake. On the 8th day, they intercepted a supply convoy. 3 small ships traveling together, hauling cargo between outposts. We need information, said. Wu, can you disable one without destroying it? I can try. The silent wind dropped out of stealth mode for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to fire 3 precision shots. The first 2 ships exploded. The third ship's engines died, leaving it drifting. They boarded using magnetic clamps and cutting torches. The crew tried to fight, but they were slow and weak. Sung knocked one aside with a single punch, disarmed another so fast the alien did not even see the blade. They took the ship's captain alive. Did what she did best. In a small room with just her and the alien captain, she asked questions. They tried to resist at first. They all did, but had 35 years of experience breaking people who thought they could not be broken. 20 minutes later, she had everything. The children are being taken to Prime, she told the team. Their capital world. There is a processing center there where they sort what they steal. The children will be classified, then sold or used for experiments. How long until they are processed? Asked, his voice tight. We have maybe 10 days. After that, they get distributed across the empire. We will never find them all. Then we move faster, Sung said. They took the ship's military access codes and uniforms. They studied the faces of the crew, learning how to impersonate them. Then they destroyed the ship and continued onward. The silent wind pushed harder, moving at dangerous speeds. The ship groaned under the stress, but Wu kept her together with skill and constant repairs. On the 15th day, came to in the ship's small galley. We are not all coming back from this, she said quietly. Looked at her, I know. Good, I just wanted to make sure you knew. We are old. We are going into the heart of an alien empire. The math is not in our favor. Why did you come then? Smiled. Because those kids deserve someone crazy enough to try, and because I am tired of running a bar. I miss the old days. Even knowing how it might end. Especially knowing how it might end. Better to go out doing something impossible than to fade away serving drinks. On the 17th day, they had a problem. Another ship appeared on sensors, larger and faster. It was a warship hunting for the destroyed convoy. "They are scanning for us," Wu said. "The stealth is holding, but if they get too close." "Can we fight them?" asked. "They have 10 times our firepower." "Then we run." But the warship was faster. It gained on them hour by hour. The team prepared for battle, knowing they might have to fight before reaching Prime. Then had an idea. "We took explosives from the convoy," she said, "and that warship is getting close. If we spacewalk behind them, plant charges on their engines." "That is a suicide run," Jin said. "One mistake and you are lost in space." "Good thing I do not make mistakes." She went out alone, using a thruster pack and magnetic boots. It took her 4 hours to reach the warship, moving slowly to avoid detection. The team watched from the silent wind, unable to help. Planted 3 charges on the warship's engine ports. Then she pushed off, floating back toward the silent wind. She was halfway back when the charges detonated. The warship's engines exploded, sending the huge vessel spinning out of control. But the explosion sent a wave of debris flying in all directions. A piece of metal, no larger than a fist, punched through suit. They got her back inside, but it was too late. The decompression had been too fast, too severe. Died in the medical bay, surrounded by her team. "Tell my daughter I love her," she whispered, "and tell those aliens they should have stayed away from our children." They buried her in space, as was tradition for soldiers lost in the void. 5 people stood at the airlock, watching her body drift away among the stars. "We finished this for her," said. The others nodded. 3 days later, Prime appeared on a massive planet, purple and green, surrounded by orbital stations and defensive platforms. "There are hundreds of ships around that planet," Wu said. "This is impossible." "You keep saying that," replied, "but we are still here." They approached using the stolen access codes, pretending to be the supply convoy. It worked. The orbital defenses let them pass. The silent wind descended toward the planet below. Toward the children. Toward a reckoning that would never forget. Prime was huge. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by transport tubes that glowed in the darkness. Millions of lights twinkled below, and massive ships moved through the atmosphere like fish in water. The processing center sat on the edge of the capital city. It was a fortress, 50 stories tall, with energy barriers and guard towers. Thousands of aliens worked there, sorting the stolen goods of an empire. "We have 8 hours before the children are moved to distribution," Wu said, monitoring stolen communications. "After that, they scatter across the empire. We will never find them all." The team gathered in the cargo hold, checking weapons and armor one final time. They wore the stolen uniforms, hopping to blend in long enough to reach the children. "We split up," said. "Wu stays with the ship. He is our exit. If we do not make it back, he gets the silent wind home and tells Earth what happened." "I do not like that plan," Wu said. "You are not supposed to. Sung, Jin, and I will create a diversion. We hit their power station and defense grid. When the base goes into emergency mode and infiltrate the processing center, find the children, get them out." "And if we run into trouble?" asked. Smiled, but there was no humor in it. "We are old soldiers walking into an alien fortress. We are already in trouble." They landed at a cargo station near the processing center. Guards barely glanced at them. The stolen codes worked perfectly. They were just another supply ship. The team split up immediately. Sung and Jin moved through the streets wearing hooded cloaks to hide their faces. The city was strange and beautiful. Buildings twisted upward like frozen waterfalls. Lights pulsed in patterns that made no sense. Aliens of a dozen different species walked the streets, some in chains, some free. The power station was 2 miles from the processing center. It was heavily guarded, surrounded by walls and automated defenses. "This will be loud," Sung said, unpacking his weapons. "Good," replied. "We want them looking at us, not at." They hit the power station at exactly midnight time. Sung opened with his heavy machine gun, the sound deafening in the alien night. Purple blood sprayed as guards fell. Alarms screamed. Lights flashed red across the city. Jin threw canisters of his special mixture over the walls. They exploded in clouds of green gas. Caught in the cloud collapsed, their weaker bodies unable to handle the poison. Moved like he was 30 again, his rifle singing a deadly song. He had forgotten how good this felt, how right. For 15 years he had been a fisherman, but before that he had been Stone, and Stone never missed. They fought their way to the power station's core. Sung planted charges while Jin held the entrance. Soldiers poured in, dozens of them, armed with energy weapons that burned the air. But the aliens had never fought humans before. They had never faced creatures who would not stop, who would not surrender, who kept coming even when wounded. Sung laughed as he fired, his machine gun roaring. "Come on, is this all you have?" The charges detonated. The power station exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the city. The explosion knocked off his feet, sent him tumbling down the street. He stood slowly, his ears ringing. Sung and Jin were nearby, also standing. They were covered in dust and blood, some of it theirs, most of it not. "Phase 1 complete," Jin said calmly, as if they had not just blown up a power station. The city went dark. Emergency lights flickered on. Military ships filled the sky, searching for the attackers. 2 miles away, and approached the processing center. The power outage worked perfectly. Barriers were down. Guards were confused, running toward the explosion, and slipped inside using a service entrance. The building was massive inside, with corridors that stretched forever. They moved quickly, following the building plans Wu had stolen. Level 37. That was where children were processed. They took the stairs, climbing in silence. Twice they encountered guards. Twice moved like shadow, his knife finding throats before the aliens could raise alarms. Level 37 was quieter. The power outage had locked most doors, trapping workers inside. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. "There," said, pointing to a large door marked with alien symbols. Wu had translated them, new acquisitions holding. Cut through the lock with a plasma torch. The door hissed open. Inside was a large room filled with cages, and in the cages were children. Not just human children, but young ones from a dozen species. All stolen, all scared. Saw her grandmother first. "Grandma," she screamed. Ran to the cage, her hands shaking, and pressed against the bars, crying. "We are here," said. "We came for you." "I knew you would," said. "I knew it." Was already cutting open cages, freeing children. 23 human children, all alive, plus 40 more from other species. "We cannot carry them all," said. "Then we find a way," replied. "We are not leaving any of them." The door behind them exploded open. Soldiers poured in, dozens of them. And at the front was a huge alien wearing decorated armor. This was the Supreme Harvester, the one who ran this entire operation. "Humans," said, his voice filled with contempt. "You dare enter my facility, you are Category 7, you are nothing." "We are grandparents," said coldly, "and you took our children." Laughed, "And now you will die for your foolishness. Guards, kill them." The guards raised their weapons. Looked at, "Close your eyes, little flower." Closed her eyes, pulled her close. Then became whisper. She moved faster than the could track. Her pistol appeared in her hand, already firing. 3 guards fell before they could shoot. Was moving too, his knife flashing in the red light. The fight was brutal and short. They had numbers and technology. But the 2 humans had something the aliens did not understand: absolute determination. No fear, no hesitation, just cold, professional violence. moved through them like death itself. She did not think, did not feel. She was a machine doing what machines do. Each bullet found a target, each movement was precise. Fought beside her, his knife singing. Where was cold precision was fluid grace. He moved like water, always in the right place, always cutting. In 90 seconds, 20 guards lay dead or dying. Only remained, backing toward the door, his eyes wide with shock. "What are you?" he whispered. "Your mistake," said. She shot him in the leg. He fell, screaming. She walked over and stood above him, her gun pointed at his head. "You will let us leave," she said. "You will deactivate all security between here and our ship. You will do it now." "I cannot," gasped. "The override requires my authorization code, but the system is locked because of the power outage." Behind them, an explosion rocked the building. His voice came over the radio. "We have a problem. Half the military is coming. We cannot hold them much longer." Looked at the children, then at, "We need to move, now." But the door sealed shut. Emergency systems engaged, locking down the entire level. They were trapped. Laughed despite his pain. "You are finished. You cannot escape. You will die here." "Then we die," said, "but not before we finish what we came for." She turned to, "Can you get the children to the loading dock, one level down, East Corridor?" "What about you?" "I will buy you time." "That is suicide." Smiled. "You and I both knew this was one way from the start. Get my home. That is all that matters." Grabbed her arm. "Go." He went, herding children through a maintenance shaft, carrying the smallest ones. Looked back, crying, as pulled her away. Stood alone in the room, reloading her weapon. Outside she could hear soldiers gathering, hundreds of them. She had bought her granddaughter 3 minutes, maybe 5 if she was lucky. It would have to be enough. The doors burst open. Whisper went to work one last time. But then a miracle. Came back carrying something large. "I found their emergency shuttle. It fits everyone, but we need to go now." Together they ran. Behind them the building was falling apart, fires spreading, alarms screaming. They reached the loading dock as Sung and Jin arrived, fighting a running battle. "Everyone on the shuttle," shouted. They loaded children as fast as they could. Human children, alien children, all of them scared but alive. Appeared at the dock entrance, bleeding but determined. He raised a weapon. Threw his knife. It crossed 20 meters in N, burying itself in his throat. The Supreme Harvester fell, his last thought one of complete disbelief. The shuttle launched, rocketing upward. Below them, the processing center exploded as Sung's charges finally detonated. The shuttle shook as it climbed through the atmosphere. Fighters chased them, firing energy weapons that left trails of light across the dark sky. "Wu, we need that ship," shouted into his radio. "Already on approach," Wu replied, "but you have company." The silent wind appeared from stealth mode, dropping down through the clouds like a black arrow. Its pulse cannons fired, destroying 2 fighters instantly. The shuttle docked with the silent wind in a maneuver that should have been impossible. Wu was the best pilot they had. He proved it now, matching speeds while dodging enemy fire. Children poured into the ship, some crying, some too shocked to speak, and carried the smallest ones, and the others provided covering fire as the last of them boarded. "Everyone is in," Jin shouted. "Then we leave," Wu said. "Hold on." The silent wind accelerated so fast that everyone was thrown against the walls. The ship's fusion cores burned white-hot, pushing beyond safe limits. Behind them, a dozen warships gave chase. "They are gaining," Wu said. "The ship cannot maintain this speed for long." "Then we fight," Sung said, moving to the weapons station. The battle was desperate. Sung fired the pulse cannons with deadly accuracy, but there were too many enemies. The silent wind's shields flickered and failed. Hull breaches appeared. Alarms screamed. "We are not going to make it," Wu said quietly. Then stood, "Yes, we are." He moved to the airlock, grabbing remaining explosives. "What are you doing?" asked. Smiled, "Buying us time, like you would have done for me." "No." But he was already cycling the airlock. He put on a spacesuit, loaded with every explosive they had left. Then he attached himself to a thruster pack. "Tell my kids I was thinking of them," he said over the radio. "And tell those bastards that humans do not forget." He launched himself backward, away from the ship, directly toward the pursuing fleet. They did not see him coming. One small human floating in the void. They probably thought he was debris. They learned their mistake when detonated every explosive at once. The explosion was like a small star being born. 3 warships vanished in the blast. 2 more were crippled. The shockwave sent the others spinning off course. It gave the silent wind the time it needed. Wu pushed the ship into faster-than-light speed. The stars stretched into lines, and Prime disappeared behind them. They were free. The journey home took 3 weeks. The team worked constantly, caring for 63 traumatized children of multiple species, held and every night while they slept, told them stories. Jin treated their wounds. Sung kept them fed. They contacted Earth on the 10th day. The government was shocked. No one had expected them to succeed. No one had expected them to return. "You rescued children from 4 other species," an official said over the radio. "Their governments are. Grateful is not a strong enough word." "We just want to go home," said. But home was complicated now. Word of the rescue spread across human space. Then it spread further. They had recorded everything. Security footage showed 5 old humans dismantling their fortress, killing hundreds of soldiers, and escaping with stolen children. The footage went viral across 1,000 alien worlds. Species who had feared the started to whisper. Species who had suffered under their empire began to hope. If 5 old humans could do this, what could an army do? The empire issued a statement, reclassifying humanity as Category 1 extreme threat. They forbade any ship from approaching Earth. Other empires took note. The Silent Wind landed on the moon base 23 days after leaving. They were met by every government official who could fit in the hangar. Cameras recorded everything. But it only cared about one thing. They walked off the ship holding, and that was all that mattered. The other children were reunited with their families. The alien children were returned to their home worlds, where they were treated as heroes. Their government sent Earth gifts of technology and friendship. And were offered medals. They refused them. They were offered government positions. They refused those too. They just wanted to go home. 3 months later, they sat on their porch watching and play in the garden. Everything looked the same as before. The fishing boats, the small houses, the peaceful town. But everything was different. Ran up to the porch, breathing hard from playing. "Grandpa, were you always a fisherman?" Looked at his granddaughter. He could tell her the truth. He could tell her about Stone, about the wars, about the things he had done in dark places. He could tell her about the blood and the fear and the terrible weight of violence. Or he could give her the truth that mattered. "In all the ways that matter, little one," he said. "I have always been your grandfather. That is the only thing that is important." Smiled and ran back to play with. Tended her garden, pulling weeds from around the vegetables. Her hands were the same hands that had held a gun 3 months ago, the same hands that had killed to protect her family. But now they nurtured life instead of taking it. "Do you think they will come back?" she asked quietly. "No," said. "We taught them a lesson. The galaxy knows now. Humans protect their young. Anyone who forgets that lesson will learn it the hard way." "And the others?" asked, and "They died doing what soldiers do, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. There are worse ways to go." Nodded. They had held a small service for their fallen friends, just the team and close family. The world would never know the names but the children they saved would remember. Above them the sky was clear and blue, but now human ships patrolled up there. The government had taken the threat seriously. Earth was building defenses, building weapons, building a fleet. The age of innocence was over. Humanity knew it was not alone in the universe, and the universe knew that humanity was not helpless. 10 years passed. Entered the military academy, following in footsteps he did not fully understand. He was training to be a pilot, flying the new ships that Earth had built using alien technology. Chose a different path. She studied xenobiology, learning about the species that filled the galaxy. She wanted to understand them, to build bridges instead of barriers. Both paths honored what their grandparents had taught them, and grew older as all people do. Their hair turned completely white, their bodies grew weaker, but their eyes remained sharp. Sometimes at night still dreamed of Prime, of the fight in the processing center, of watching sacrifice himself among the stars. But mostly he dreamed of fishing boats and laughter. "We did good," said one evening, sitting beside him on the porch. "We did what needed to be done," replied. "And if we had to do it again," looked at his wife, his partner, his fellow warrior, "then we would do it again, every time, forever." Because that was what grandparents did. They protected they loved them. They would move heaven and earth, cross the galaxy, fight entire empires if needed. The aliens had learned this lesson too late. But they would not forget it. Throughout the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, a new saying spread, especially among those who dealt in stolen children, who traded in suffering, who preyed on the weak. The saying was simple: never touch human children. And beneath those words was always the same story. The story of 5 old humans who had nothing but determination and love, who had crossed the stars to bring their children home, who had killed hundreds and destroyed an empire's fortress with their bare hands. The story of grandparents who became legends. Life continued. Fishing boats went out each morning. Children played in gardens. Old people mended nets and tended flowers. But now, when alien ships passed overhead, they gave Earth a wide berth. Because they knew. They knew what sleeping dragons looked like. And they knew better than to wake them. And sat on their porch, watching the sunset. 2 old people at the end of their journey. 2 monsters who had chosen to be human. 2 warriors who had found peace. Brought them tea like she did every evening. She was 17 now, already accepted to university. "I love you, Grandma. I love you, Grandpa," she said, kissing their cheeks. "We love you too," they replied. And in that moment, everything they had done, every life they had taken, every risk they had faced, it was all worth it. Because the children were safe. The children were home. And that was all that mattered. In the garden, flowers bloomed under careful hands. On the water, fishing boats returned with their catch. In the sky, stars began to appear, beautiful and distant. And somewhere out there, among those stars, civilizations whispered warnings to each other. Warnings about Earth, about humans, about what happens when you threaten their young. The message was clear. The message would never be forgotten. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, not with words or diplomacy, but with action. And the galaxy listened.